right. Go ahead, Ms. Matucci.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Bates, before we took a break, we were talking about those text messages that we saw in your phone, States 56, and you stated that you had labeled Mr. Bryant's in your phone as Miles the stalker. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And why did you label him that?
Because he was being very weird, his behavior, it was stalker vibes, and he was stalking me. He showed up to my house unannounced on numerous occasions.
Okay. Your apartment, you said, was on the second floor. Did any of your neighbors have video cameras that faced your door?
Yes, ma'am. The neighbor across the hall had a Ring camera set up.
Okay. And I'm showing you what's been marked as States 57. If you could take a moment and look at that photograph. Is that a true and accurate copy of a photo from the Ring doorbell of your door at your apartment on Anniston Road?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, this time attend to States 57.
No objection.
States 57 is admitted without objection.
Permission to publish States 57.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, Your Honor.
It's okay. There's always a technological problem, always. Can't go a trial without it.
And we're showing States 57. Is this your door?
Yes, ma'am.
And if we can zoom in on the door. And where did you get this picture from?
My neighbor across the hall.
Okay. And this is, tell us, so we saw the stairs. This is how you get up to your apartment?
Yes, ma'am.
The door that we're looking at, explain how the door handle works.
You have to turn the knob to get in. So regularly it's just going to be up like it is in the picture.
Okay, so you have to push it down and turn it down to get into the apartment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the hallway, you're saying the door that has the Ring camera, that's directly across from your door?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm showing what's been marked as 57.1. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that a true and accurate copy of another photograph from your neighbor's Ring doorbell of your door at your Anniston Road apartment?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, assignment under States 57.1.
No objection.
States 57.1 is admitted without objection.
Permission to publish 57.1.
Yes, ma'am.
And tell us what we're looking at here, Ms. Bates.
Miles Bryant trespassing because he was not invited this day that he came.
And what is the date that this is marked on the...
October 15th of 2022.
At what time?
At 6:53 p.m.
And that's Mr. Bryant there on the camera?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you invite him to visit you that day?
No, ma'am.
Did you know he was at your house that day?
No, ma'am.
Do you know if you were home that day?
I don't believe I was. I believe I was at work.
Okay. And again, you got this from your neighbor?
Yes, ma'am.
Were there any other times besides this day that Mr. Bryant came to your house uninvited?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know what month that those occurred?
I believe in December and I think November.
And the videos, did you get videos of the Ring doorbell capturing Mr. Bryant at your home?
Yes, ma'am.
From your neighbor?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you had an opportunity to watch those videos?
I have.
I'm showing you a disc that's been marked as States 11. If you could take a moment and look at that disc. Is that your initials on there?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Did you initial that after watching those videos?
I did.
And the videos that are contained on that disc, are those true and accurate copies of the Ring doorbell videos from your neighbor of your door of your Inkstown apartment in 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, this time Tender states 11.
No objection.
States 11 is submitted without objection.
And Your Honor, there are 2 videos on states 11. Permission to publish those videos on states 11.
Yes.
And I know it's kind of hard to see. Do you see, can you read the, Ms. Bates, can you read the date on the bottom of this one?
December 10th of 2022,
And what time was this?
1921 hours.
And if we could play that video? And Ms. Bates, was that your apartment?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recognize the man that was trying to get on your door?
I do.
Who was that?
Miles Bryant.
And if we could just go back to like the end of it and pause. There, we see your door handle. How is your door handle in this video?
Push down.
Is that how the regular position is if no one was trying to get into it?
No, ma'am.
Okay. This was on December 10th. Again, were you home?
No, ma'am.
Did you invite Mr. Bryant to your home that day?
No, ma'am.
Do you know where you were that day?
Working. I had just gotten off when my neighbor showed me the video.
Okay. And Your Honor, we're going to play the second video on States 11. Permission to publish that?
Certainly.
Thank you. Ms. Bates, can you see the date and time for it here?
Yes, ma'am. It is December 11th, 2022, 1741.
And were you home that day on December 11th at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
You were home?
Yes.
Had you invited Mr. Bryant?
No, ma'am.
Did you answer the door that day when he came?
I did not.
How did you know who was at the door?
Because he was stalking me. I posted something to set him up to come to my apartment.
Okay, let's talk about that. What do you mean you posted something?
My neighbor showed me previously that Miles kept coming to my apartment.
Was
I
that the video that we just watched of him trying to...
opened the door, yes, ma'am.
So after you saw that video, what did you do?
I purchased a gun. My boyfriend had a gun already at the moment. I posted a bunch of videos and pictures looking cute on Snapchat, flooded and said I was going back home, which is Missouri.
So you posted that you were going to Missouri. Was Mr. Bryant friends with you on social media, that he would be able to see those posts saying you were going to Missouri?
Yes, ma'am. He was the first one to watch all 10 videos I posted within the first couple seconds.
How do you know he watched all those videos?
Snapchat tells you who views.
Okay. So after you posted the videos, what happened?
After I posted the videos, I waited. My ex-boyfriend at the moment, he pulled the TV closer so he could be in the door frame of my bedroom. I laid in the bathroom on the floor. I was just laying there. I didn't think that he'd be able to hear it through with the TV on. So maybe like an hour later, we hear knocking. He didn't hear it. I heard it at first, and I knew it was Miles.
I'm sorry.
My ex at the time.
Okay, so you were in the bathroom and you heard the knocking.
I heard the knocking, so I knew it was Miles. I grabbed my gun and I peeked through the peephole. I cocked the gun back, and he had his pointed at the door as well. I thought the whole thing through. I didn't want to just murder somebody like that, so I called the cops as well, so it'd all be documented.
And you said that you heard the gun cock. Was that your gun? Your cock?
My gun cocked back, yes, ma'am.
And how were you able to see Mr. Bryant?
I could see through the peephole that it was him.
And what did you see when you looked through the peephole?
At first, he was just standing there. He started knocking on the door, and then as I backed away, he started kicking on it harder. I moved to the living room of the house, and I started calling 911 at a distance so he wouldn't hear the phone call.
And when you looked through the door, the peephole, was he wearing this gray hoodie that we see here in the video, States 11?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said you called the police?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know how many times you called the police?
I probably have called them a total of 3 or 4.
That day on December 10th and 11th, do you know how many times you called that weekend?
No, but I was determined to figure out where Miles worked because I knew that he was a cop, so I did research on Facebook and found his Doraville sheriff's ID badge or whatever, and then I started calling around. And then I was able to find out that he was a Doraville cop. And I made the complaint to his supervisor, who told me that Miles stayed at
Ms. Bates, I need you to not say anything that anyone else says, just what you know from your own knowledge, so not what other people tell you, okay? So you called Doraville Police and complained?
I called Doraville police and complained about the defendant.
And you also called Gwinnett County 911, correct?
I did.
And have you listened to both of the 911 calls you made to Gwinnett County Police?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm showing you the first disc, which is marked States 30. If you could take a moment and do you recognize States 30, that disc?
Yes, ma'am. It's initialed.
Is that your initials?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you listened to that 911 call, was that a true and accurate recording of a 911 call you made back in December of 2022 to Gwinnett County Police in reference to Mr. Bryant being at your door?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, this time I tender States 30.
No objection.
Okay, states 30 is admitted without objection.
Permission to publish States 30, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
004924 seconds.
Gwinnett 911, what is the location of your emergency? Gwinnett County 911, what is the location of your emergency?
It's 3974 Annestown Road.
This is a house, a business, or an apartment.
Apartment address is 205.
Okay, and this is Stone Creek on the Green.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what's your phone number in case we get disconnected?
470-506-7406.
What's going on?
Somebody tried to break into my apartment not too long ago. I had just returned home. My neighbor, she was coming home too, and she let me know somebody's trying to break in. But I know who it is. And he was in the military. He still works for the cop.
Okay, so when you say he was trying to break in, what exactly did he do? Did he kick the door? What did he do?
He was trying to get inside. He was pulling on the doorknob. He covered his face up. Wouldn't look at the ring camera. None of that.
Okay,
It's
and
his
so
video.
how long ago was this?
This was tonight. But when he broke into my
10 minutes
apartment,
ago, 20 minutes ago, like time lapse, how long ago?
like 7-something.
7 p.m.?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so, and you know this person, what kind of relationship do you have with this person?
We went to high school. No, we went to high school together, like years ago. His name was Miles Bryant.
Okay, and so what's your name?
Alicia Bates.
And you're able to pull the video footage up, correct?
Yes, ma'am. I can forward it to you now if you'd like.
Well, I'm going to send an officer out there to you, so there's no need for that. And then just to make sure that I have the address correct, give it to me one more time.
3974 Annestown Road, apartment 205, Snellville, Georgia 30039.
Okay, and we'll have them out there to you as soon as possible, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Bye.
Ms. Bates, I'm showing you a copy of the second 911 call, which is labeled States 59. Do you recognize that disc also?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that your initials on the disc?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And when you listened to States 59, was that a true or an accurate recording of a second 911 call you made to Gwinnett County Police in reference to Mr. Bryant attempting to break into your apartment in December of 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, this time it under States 59.
No objection.
States 59 is admitted without objection.
Permission to publish States 59, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
174254 seconds.
Gwinnett 911, what's the location of your emergency? 3974 Repeat it.
Okay, repeat the address for me.
3974 Innocent Way, apartment 205.
Okay, do you know this person?
Yes,
Who is it?
Miles Bryant.
Miles Bryant?
Yes,
Who is he to you?
he's a friend since years ago. I graduated 2019. I knew him probably last talked to him 2017. Talked to him maybe last year and tried to break down, but I wasn't home. But
How do you know it's him?
my neighbor caught it on camera yesterday, and I knew it was.
Okay, what is he, when you say he's breaking in,
He's at my door trying to get in.
so is he like jiggling the door? Is he kicking it?
Yes, and pushing up against it.
Okay. Were y'all in a relationship?
No, never. He dated my best friend.
Have you seen any weapons?
No.
Why would he be trying to get into your house?
I don't know.
I mean, he wouldn't just randomly come to your house. Had y'all been in an argument?
No, never, ever. Can you can help me?
That's what I'm doing, but I need you to stay on the phone with me.
No, we're never in a relationship.
Okay, so why would he be at your house? Is your friend there?
No, I don't know.
Okay, is he white, black, Hispanic, Asian, Indian?
But,
Do you know what he's wearing?
no, but in the video yesterday, he had on a gray hoodie. He's in his car. It's in front of my neighborhood. It's a black Ford. It looks like a F-150 pickup truck. And all I keep hearing is fuck, 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 fuck.
But he was there yesterday trying to get in as well?
Yes.
Do you have any weapons?
Yes. I have a pistol.
Are you in possession of the pistol?
Yes. And my boyfriend is here as well. And he has a firearm as well.
Is he in the house with you?
Yes.
Like your boyfriend's right beside you?
He's watching the door. I'm watching outside the window to do his car. He's trying to leave now. Yeah, he's leaving now.
Okay, what is your name?
Alicia Bates. He's leaving. I'm trying to get the license plate. Hold on. I can't see today. He's going to the gate. Are the cops close?
No, ma'am, they are not.
He's gone.
Towards the gate?
Yeah, he's going to the gate now.
Okay, what's your phone number, Alicia?
470-506-7406.
Okay. Is he leaving for sure?
Yes, he's leaving. He's at the
Okay.
gate, and there's a guy behind him. And he's
Okay.
behind him.
Who's behind him?
There was a black, like a silver Nissan behind him. And he's
Okay.
leaving.
Okay, we'll send somebody out there since y'all seem to be having a problem with him, and they will come out and meet with you. I need you to go ahead and put the weapons away, though, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
But are there going to be can you get arrested tonight? Are they going to be able to do that? Because
I don't know, ma'am. I don't know, ma'am. Obviously something's going on that you're not telling me. I don't know why that...
No, ma'am, there's nothing going on that I'm not telling you. He was dating my friend from like years ago when we were all kids. I've known him since 5th grade. He dated her. They broke up in high school. I hadn't talked to him since. He wanted to talk to me about possibly getting back together with her. I knew that she still had somewhat feelings, and that he still liked her, so we talked. He came to my house, we had pizza, we talked about her, and I sent him home. He tried to stay to sleep. I said no, and I sent him home.
When was that?
I kind of wake up. When was my apartment built in today? Last year, maybe December something? December, November, something like that.
Okay. We will get an officer out to meet with y'all. If you will, like I said, go ahead and put those weapons up for me, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. If he comes back, give us a call back.
And Ms. Bates, did you end up speaking to law enforcement?
I don't think they sent a unit. They called my phone, but nobody ever came.
We heard on the 911 call that you mentioned your apartment had been broken in the year prior. Did you know who broke into your house? Did you have that time?
I didn't know. I had an assumption because I received a bunch of phone calls and text messages from Miles.
Okay, but you didn't know who, you weren't there to see who broke into your apartment, right?
No, ma'am, I was working.
Okay, tell me what type of damage was on your apartment the first time it was broken into, you said.
The first time it was broken into, they kicked the door off the hinges. There were screws loose and everything. It was just gone.
Okay. And this was the 911 call we just heard was from December 11th of 2022. Had you invited Mr. Bryant to your home that day?
No, ma'am.
The next day, on December 12th of 2022, did you see Mr. Bryant again at your house?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us what happened that day.
Like I said, I set him up to come. I posted stuff on Snapchat and posted a bunch of stuff saying that I was going to leave town, which I figured if he's stalking me and he wants to get rid of me or do anything to me, he would try to abduct me before I left.
And did you see Mr. Bryant standing by, or his truck, I'm sorry, by the dumpster or trash area of your apartment?
Yes, ma'am. I was leaving. I was walking to my car. I just felt funny, like I felt like somebody was watching me, and I looked.
May we approach, please?
Yes.
talking about the last time on December 12th, 2022, the day after you had called police, and you said you saw him by your dumpster trash area in your complex.
Yes, ma'am. I saw him. I was walking to my car. I felt like somebody was watching me. It was pretty late, so I was alert. It's pretty dark.
Did you see a vehicle?
I did. I saw a F-150 parked by the dumpsters with a dark-skinned male standing outside with glasses on.
Okay. And what did you do when you saw that F-150 in the mail?
I hurried up and got in my car and locked the doors and called my boyfriend, or my ex-boyfriend.
And did you leave your complex that night then?
I did.
Did you, after then, that was in December of 2022, did you ever initiate any more contact with Mr. Bryant?
No, ma'am.
Did you hear from him any other time?
No, he kept texting me, but I never responded.
And again, since knowing him from 5th grade to today, did you guys ever go on a date?
Never.
Did you ever sleep together?
Never.
Did you ever express any interest in him?
Never.
And Ms. Bates, the person who was attempting to get into your home, do you see him here in the courtroom?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you please point him out to the jury and tell us what he's wearing?
An orange button-up with a gray tie. He took his glasses off and he has on black shoes.
Please let the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, Your Honor, and I have no other questions for this witness.
Thank you.
I can approach with these assistants.
Certainly. Ms. Drake?
I just have a few questions for you. So I wanted to clarify something. The night or the time when you posted the videos that you were moving to Missouri, did I hear you say that your boyfriend was there with you?
I didn't state that I was moving. I stated that I was going to go out of town, just on a trip. And yes, ma'am, my boyfriend was there at the time.
So you posted that specifically to lure him to your home?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you said he continued to text you, so obviously you never blocked him.
No, ma'am, I wanted proof.
Okay. And you were, he was still on your social media accounts and you never blocked him.
I sure didn't, because he was stalking me, so the only way for me to prove the fact that he was going to come to my home, or even let him know that I was at home so he could come, would be for me to leave him on the social media. And I saved messages as well.
Okay. And that text message where he had information, you said it was because something about he had some stuff to see if your boyfriend was cheating on you.
Yeah, he had downloaded some cheating software or whatever to get in the phone.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
No worries.
Ms. Bates, just for clarification, you said you posted those messages to say you were going out of town to try and set him up.
Yes, ma'am.
Were you trying to have law enforcement catch him?
Yes, the whole plan was to post. I knew that he was stalking me, so I posted stuff like I was going to go out of town, knowingly that he would pop back up the next day or whenever. I waited, and like I said, I did not shoot him. I could have shot through the door. He was kicking through my door, like he was kicking hard. But I didn't. I called the cops. I did the right thing.
And Ms. Bates, before you did that, posted that stuff on Snapchat, to use your words, of set him up, have you called police and not gotten any help?
Yes, ma'am. I called police and I spoke to his supervisor.
So you had called Doraville Police and Gwinnett County Police before you did that, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and Your Honor, if I could approach to get one more exhibit.
Certainly.
And if we could put States 56 back up. States 56. My apologies, Your Honor.
No problem. I warned everybody at the beginning of the trial, we will have at least one technology problem.
again, that was already admitted into evidence. What is the time, the date and time on this?
October 15th at 6:53 p.m.
Okay, and then we're gonna go to States 56 on page 2 of that exhibit for October 15th, the same day. What time on October 15th did you receive that message from Mr. Bryant saying link?
8:05 p.m.
And you said what does link mean?
Like when somebody's trying to link up with you, it's like hanging out, but when you guys say it is kind of more sexual, you know it's something that they're expecting.
So he's asking you to meet up after on 57.1, he's already been at your door?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Now, on the ring tone or whatever it is video that shows him knocking on the door, where's the one on him trying to kick in the door?
The video stops. I was home and it's the 911 call as well.
Okay. Thank you.
I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Nothing else.
And may we release this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. You may be.
Got on state post, Ms. Yesenia Linas, who is also subject to instruction.
All right,
And now this is a witness on which I'm asking
for the charge,
the media.
the media and the charge, okay. All right, let me first address the media. You're not to show this witness' face, anything from the neck below, and you are not to show the video that will be presented. Good afternoon. Would you remain standing and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. Ma'am, I have instructed the media to not film or take photographs of your face, nor to take photographs or videos of the video that will be produced. But ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I need to give you the same instruction I gave you with the last witness. Sometimes evidence is admitted for a limited purpose. Such evidence may be considered by the jury for the sole issue or purpose for which the evidence is limited and not for any other purpose. In order to prove its case in counts 1, 2, 3, and 4, the state must show intent. The state has offered evidence of other acts allegedly committed by the accused to prove intent and motive and negate any defenses of accident or mistake. You are permitted to consider this evidence only insofar as it may relate to those issues and not for any other purpose. You may not infer from such evidence that the defendant is of a character that would commit such crimes. The evidence may be considered only to the extent that it may show the elements that the state is required to prove in the crimes charged in the case now on trial. Such evidence, if any, may not be considered by you for any other purpose. The defendant is on trial for the offenses charged in this bill of indictment only and not for any other acts, even though such acts may incidentally be criminal. Before you may consider any other alleged acts for the limited purposes stated, you must first determine whether it is more likely than not that the accused committed the other alleged acts. If so, you must then determine whether the acts shed any light on the elements of the offenses for which the acts were admitted in the crimes charged in the indictment in this trial. Remember to keep in mind the limited use and the prohibited use of this evidence about other acts of the defendant. By giving this instruction to you at this time, the court in no way suggests to you that the defendant has or has not committed any other acts, nor whether such acts, if committed, prove anything. This is solely a matter for your determination. Go ahead. Ma'am, have you ever testified in court?
No, ma'am.
Okay. My court reporter's taken everything down, and so she can't see if you nod your head or say uh-huh or uh-uh, so we may say, is that a yes, is that a no? There's water right behind you if you need some, and I'm going to need you to come up to the microphone and so that you can be heard. Okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
And ma'am, can you state your name
Yesenia
and your last name?
Lainez,
Can you spell both names?
Yecenia, last name Lainez.
Thank you, Ms. Lanez. And where do you work, ma'am?
Quick Trip,
And how long have you worked for Quick Trip?
about 7 years.
And is there a specific store that you work at currently?
Yes.
Which store is that?
I currently work at the one off Duluth and Riverside.
Okay. And what is your position with Quick Trip?
I'm an assistant manager.
What does an assistant manager do?
Oh,
Everything?
yeah, I would say everything.
So do you work in the register area that all the customers are in?
Yes, for the most part of the shift, I'm on register.
Okay. And do you also supervise employees?
Yes.
And you said you've worked there 7 years.
Yes.
Have you worked at different Quick Trip stores than the one you're at now?
Yes, they constantly move us around.
Okay. And back in the summer of 2022, were you working for Quick Trip then?
Yes.
Were you an assistant manager at that point?
Yes.
How long have you been in a management position?
I would say maybe 3 years now.
Okay. So back in the summer of 2022, which Quick Trip were you at then?
The one off Beaufort Highway,
And what city is that in? Do you know?
Doraville.
How long do you think you were at the Doraville store?
I was there for maybe less than 6 months.
Okay. And all of those 6 months were in 2022?
Yes. I think I started there the December of the year before, like
Okay.
the very last week of December.
As an assistant manager in Quick Trip, do you interact with law enforcement ever?
Absolutely.
What do you, just as customers or other occasions?
As customers, they come in regularly, and then we also deal with a lot of crazy situations to where we sometimes have to call for their help.
Okay. And sometimes is that the manager's responsibility or assistant managers to call for assistance for law enforcement?
Yes, it's up to us to make that phone call.
When you worked at the Doraville store back in, I think you said December of 21 into 2022, then the summer, did you have the opportunity to call Doraville law enforcement?
Yes, when I was working at that store, that was a store where we had a lot of crazy going on. So the Doraville Police Department was right around the corner, so they frequented the store a lot.
Okay. And did officers also come in just to get coffee and snacks and stuff?
Yes, we provide them with free coffee and free drinks, so they stop in regularly.
Okay, so you saw cops a lot.
Yes.
Okay. And did you have an opportunity to know Mr. Miles Bryant?
Yes.
How did you know him?
He, like all the officers that worked for Doraville Police Department that would frequent the store, he was one that would come by whenever we would call them or would just randomly stop by.
Okay. How many times do you think you saw him in the store?
I would not be able to say how many. It's just
More than once?
definitely more than once.
Okay. Besides seeing him at work at Quick Trip, did you ever see him socially outside of your job?
No.
Did you ever date him or have a relationship with him?
No.
Did you ever give him your phone number?
No.
Did you have his phone number other than 911 or the police department?
No.
And were you and Mr. Bryant ever friends on any social media apps?
No.
Did you ever go to his house?
No.
Did you ever call Doraville police and specifically ask, hey, send Officer Bryant, ask for him?
No.
So the only time that you knew him was when he came into your store?
Yes. Whenever he would randomly, like I said, either show up on a call or he would just randomly stop by the store.
I'm going to bring your attention back to the day of July 27th, 2022. You were working at that Doraville Quick Trip then?
Yes.
As the assistant manager?
Yes.
Do you remember back in the summer of 2022 what type of cell phone you had?
I believe I had an iPhone 12, I think.
Okay. Is it the
13,
same?
13. might have been 13.
Is it the same phone you have now, or
No.
did you get a new phone?
Yeah, I have a new phone now.
Okay, but it was an iPhone.
Yes.
And the phone number that you have now, did you have the same phone number back then?
Yes, I still have the same number.
Okay. Back in, did you ever let Mr. Bryant or Officer Bryant, as you knew him, borrow your phone?
Yes, one time.
One time. Okay. And was that back in July of 2022?
Yes.
And when you let him borrow your phone that day, was he in a police uniform?
Yes.
A Doraville police uniform?
Yes.
Had you called him to the store?
I don't believe I had called him to the store.
Okay. Tell us how he had the opportunity to get your phone.
So he came by to the store, and I was on register at the moment. And he came up to me with saying that his bank app was not working on his phone. And he asked me if I used Chase. And I was like, yes, I use Chase for banking, so I have the app. He said it wasn't working on his phone, so he asked if he could use my phone.
Okay.
I didn't think much of it.
And did you let him use your
Yeah, so I signed out of like my bank account, make sure my information wasn't there. And I handed him my phone.
And when you handed him your phone, where were you in the store? Do you remember?
So I was on the check stand.
So on the register?
Yes, that's what we call where the register is, sorry.
And I know it's like there's a counter and a little higher. Did
Yes.
Mr. Bryant come back behind the registers with you?
No. So he was standing on the side, like on the sideline on the outer. And I was like inside behind the register.
Okay. How far do you think he was from you while you're working that register?
A few feet.
Okay. And did you, were you still working while he actually had your phone?
Yes. I want to say when I handed him my phone, I wasn't, but Quick Trip is a job where it's very fast paced. So I'm sure that I was still ringing up customers and multitasking. So I'm sure I walked away for a few seconds, maybe a couple minutes.
I'm sorry. You say multitasking. Tell us what you're doing. What do you mean?
I'm ringing people up, so I'm on register, helping out customers who may have questions, directing my clerks that work with me.
That store in Doraville, that was a busy store?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you gave him the phone, and could you see what he was doing with the phone while you were ringing up customers?
No.
Do you know about how long he had your phone in his hand?
It couldn't have been longer than a few minutes.
Did he, you said he told you he wanted to check his Chase app,
Yes.
and after he had the phone for a few minutes, did he give it back to you?
Yes.
What happened then?
He just handed it to me.
Okay.
Said thank you.
Did you have on your phone, and I'm sorry to be personal, any videos or photographs that were involved nudity of yourself?
Yes.
Those photos or images, where did you have them stored on your phone?
In my hidden gallery.
In your hidden gallery, tell us how you get to that on a phone.
So back then, this was prior to the current iPhone updates.
Okay.
But at the time, it would be at the very bottom. When you go into your camera roll, it would be at the very bottom, and there would be a folder or gallery that said hidden.
Okay. And did you, to get into that hidden folder at the time, did you need a Face ID or a fingerprint to get into it?
No, at the time you didn't. Those
password?
No. Like I said, it was a better way to hide anything you didn't want to be in your regular camera gallery, but it didn't need a passcode or finger ID or anything like that.
Now, I'm going to approach and show you what's been marked as 22.1. If you could take a moment and look at this document.
That's what Tuesday, 26.1.
22.1?
22.1, I didn't hear you, sorry.
And it's a 3-page document. If you could look at the phone number on the front page.
Where am I looking at that? This one? Oh, yes.
That phone number on there. Could you read that phone number?
404-883-6101.
And is that your phone number that you still have?
Yes.
Is that the phone number you had back in the summer of 2022?
Yes.
And is that looking at that document, is that a true and accurate copy of some text messages from your phone?
Yes.
All right, this time at tender states 22.1.
Any objection? Okay, that's okay, that's okay. States 22.1 is admitted without objection.
Permission to publish 22.1, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And we see this on the screen. And we're gonna go to the,
You have a screen right here. We have it moved, so it will come up back there,
Okay.
but the press is not
Okay.
filmed.
and that phone number at the top, we see under participants, is that your phone number?
Yes.
Okay. And the email address under that, what is that email?
Swagged out 1019 at Gmail?
Do you know what that email, owns that email?
No.
And if we could scroll to the third page of that document, that photograph that we see there, do you recognize that photograph, Ms. Lanish?
Yes.
What is that a photograph from?
That is one of my hidden gallery videos.
Thank you. That photograph and that we saw, did you send that to anyone?
No.
I'm showing you what's been marked as dates 22. Do you recognize that? Is
Yes.
that your initials on that?
Yes.
And states 22, I'm sorry. Is that the full video of the little photograph we just saw that was admitted into evidence of 22.1?
Yes.
And was that a true and accurate copy of the video that was saved in your hidden gallery on your phone?
Yes.
At this time, it states 22.
No objection.
State 22 is admitted without objection.
And Your Honor, permission to publish this.
Yes, ma'am.
And Your Honor would ask the media to remember the court's instructions.
Yes. This video can't be photographed or filmed.
And Ms. Lannis, I'm sorry, I know that this is difficult, but was that your black fingernails on the screen?
Yes.
And that video that we just saw, was that you? Did you
Yes.
record that?
Yes.
And was that on your phone in your hidden gallery?
It was.
Did you send that video or that text of that screenshot to Miles Bryant at any time?
No.
Did you give him permission to go into your phone videos when he had it in your phone?
Absolutely not.
Did you give him permission to text or send any videos or photographs from your phone?
No.
When you gave him your phone momentarily at Quick Trip, did you see him do anything suspicious?
No.
Were you able to see what he was actually doing on your phone?
No.
At some point, did you learn that Mr. Bryant had possession of that video?
I only found out when the detective called me to notify me that they had found my phone number in his phone after they had confiscated it. Prior to that, no, there was no record on my phone that would have shown those messages going from my phone to his.
So when you got the phone back from Mr. Bryant, did you see any outgoing text in your text log?
No.
Did you see any outgoing emails to this swagged@gmail?
No.
On your phone? And did you have any record on your phone prior to the detective calling you that this video of yours had been sent to Mr. Bryant?
No.
One moment here. Do you remember, Ms. Lannis, what time he had come in this store?
I don't remember.
And Your Honor, if we could republish 22.1 that's been sent. And I'm going to hand you that. Are you able to see a date and time on there?
Yes.
What is the date and time?
It's July 27th, 2022 at 10:16 p.m.
And that is, it says UTC. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, I know you guys explained it to me. I don't remember. No, I don't.
Okay. And did you give him permission to send anything to you?
No.
And did you, why did you hand him your phone to let him use it for a minute?
I honestly didn't think much of it. He asked for a favor. You know, you don't think somebody's going to go to your hidden gallery and send themselves something like that when you hand them your phone for a few minutes.
Is that because he was in a police uniform also?
Yes.
Is that because you knew he worked for Doraville Police and had come to your store before as a cop?
Yes.
And the man who did that, do you see him here in the courtroom?
Yes.
Can you please point him out to the jury? And just tell us what he's wearing?
He's wearing a peach-colored shirt and tie.
Your Honor, please let the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
Okay.
That's all the questions I have.
Ms. Drake,
I don't have any questions, ma'am, thank you.
may we release this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You're excused. Thank you. And state call its last witness of the day, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Everybody's hoping I'm brief, isn't it? She will call Dr. Carol Terry.
I was the first one to laugh at that. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Will you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, Dr. Terry, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Would you introduce yourself to the jury, please? Tell us your name.
I'm Dr. Carol Terry,
Could you spell it for us, please?
certainly. First name Carol, C-A-R-O-L. Last name Terry, T-E-R-R-Y.
And Dr. Terry, what is it that you do for a profession?
I am a forensic pathologist, and I function as the chief medical examiner for Gwinnett County.
How long have you been chief medical examiner for Bryant County?
I have functioned in that capacity since February of 2006.
Prior to working as the medical examiner in Gwinnett County, did you have any other experience in forensic pathology?
Yes, I did.
And can you tell us what that was?
Well, prior to coming to Gwinnett, I worked for Dr. Gerald T. Gowitt, and that's G-O-W-I-T-T, who is the chief medical examiner in DeKalb County. And we conducted medical examiner cases for DeKalb County, but also for Hall, Henry, Rockdale, and White counties. Prior to that, I worked for 10 years as a medical examiner in Fulton County, and while I was working in Fulton County for a period of time, we also covered medical examiner cases at the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, so the GBI, covering medical examiner cases throughout the state. Also, when I was at Fulton County, and Dr. Gowitt was in DeKalb County, I did some weekend coverage for him and covered cases in Gwinnett, DeKalb, and Cobb counties for him on a weekend basis.
In total, how many years of practice as a forensic pathologist do you have?
30.
And what kind of training have you gone, training and education, I'll lump them together, have you gone through to be a forensic pathologist?
Okay. In 1986, I graduated from Emory College of Emory University, where I have a Bachelor of Science in Biology and a Bachelor of Arts in Religion. From 1986 to 1990, I attended Emory University School of Medicine, where I received my Doctor of Medicine degree. So I am an MD, a medical doctor. From 1990 to 1995, I was a resident in pathology. Pathology, broadly stated, is the study of disease. And I was a resident in pathology in the Emory University affiliated hospital systems. And my 5-year residency in pathology involved the areas of anatomic and clinical pathology. Anatomic pathology is tissue-based pathology and involves diagnosing disease states from tissues, such as biopsies or organs or tissues removed from living people, as well as autopsy specimens. Clinical pathology is the laboratory medicine aspect of pathology and involves diagnosing disease states from fluids, such as blood, urine, saliva, etc., and encompasses such areas as chemistry, microbiology, hematology, and blood banking. In my 5-year residency, I was allowed to work exclusively at the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office in the area of forensic pathology. And forensic pathology is the medical legal investigation of death. And as a forensic pathologist in Georgia, we are guided by the law and a specific part of the law that's referred to as the Georgia Death Investigation Act, which defines our duties as medical examiners. And as a medical examiner, we are interested in deaths that are sudden, unexpected, unexplained, or deaths that are due to non-natural causes, or deaths in which there is no prior physician-patient relationship, so that there's no one who knows more about the patient than potentially I do, who can then sign the death certificate. So after completing my 5-year residency in pathology at Emory, I stayed on staff at the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office as an associate medical examiner. And as I indicated, I worked at the Fulton County office for 10 years, then went to DeKalb for 2, and then I have been in Gwinnett since February of 2006 in a full-time capacity. I am licensed to practice medicine in the state of Georgia and have been since 1992. I'm triple board certified by the American Board of Pathology in all 3 areas of pathology in which I have studied and trained: anatomic, clinical, and forensic pathology. I have personally conducted between 6,300 and 6,400 autopsies. I've supervised individuals in training in over 700 additional cases. When I was at Fulton County, was a co-director of the fellowship training program, and also when I was at Fulton County, I was post-certified by the Police Officer Standards and Training Council to teach in the area of death investigation. And I have testified in the Superior Courts of Georgia and been declared or tendered as an expert witness over 400 times.
You answered all the questions I was going to ask. You need some water?
If you wouldn't mind, let me, thank you.
Got that taken care of at once.
Okay.
Could you just get her a bottle?
That's okay, I think I got it. I got it. Alrighty.
And Dr. Terry, well, before I go any further, Judge, I'm going to move to qualify her as an expert in forensic pathology.
I need to think about it. I have no objections.
Dr. Terry is so qualified as an expert.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Terry, we're going to get to the specifics of this case here in just a second. But have you mentioned, I think you said maybe over 6,000 autopsies that you performed?
That's correct. I've personally conducted over 6,300 autopsies.
Okay. Now, in all of those, are any of those autopsies that you conducted autopsies involving remains that are found, more like skeletal remains of folks who are not, who died from a sudden gunshot wound or something like that?
Yes, I mean, we take the bodies as we get them, and sometimes we get bodies that are in decomposed states, and sometimes we get bodies that are fully skeletonized.
And do you have any idea, just on a ballpark estimate, of how many times you've had to perform an autopsy on a skeletonized body that you've got?
Oh, I mean, I'd say we get maybe about 5 to 10 a year or so.
Okay, so over 30 years?
Yeah, I mean, we get a handful of them, and sometimes, incomplete skeletal remains. So.
All right. I want to take you, well, let me ask you, are there any challenges that present itself when you're conducting an autopsy in terms of a skeletonized individual versus, I won't say normal, I don't know what the right scientific term is, but a person who's not skeletonized, who's recently deceased?
Yes, recently deceased. Yes, there are many more challenges when you're dealing with just skeletonized remains because you only have a fraction of the body.
Now, with that, what kind of challenges, on average, do you face?
That's kind of a broad question. I'm sorry. Can you tell me about what exactly you're asking me?
Yeah, I can narrow it down. So, how do you generally go about, when you look at a skeletonized remains, how do you generally go about determining, a cause of death in general?
Okay. Well, first of all, and I wasn't sure what we were talking about here, if you were talking about deaths in general or if you're limiting it to skeletal remains. But initially, when we're dealing with skeletal remains, first of all, I do an inventory of the body. What do I have? What am I missing? What is associated with the remains? Do I just have bones? Do I have personal effects? One of the things that's going to be most important when we're trying to evaluate skeletal remains is, who is this person? Because as we've indicated, I have a fraction of the body. So to determine a cause of death is going to be more challenging, and it's really going to be helpful to know who this person is, because then you can evaluate the circumstances more. And as a medical examiner, I don't just conduct autopsies in a vacuum. Circumstances or what's at the scene is very important, and certainly with skeletal remains, that's the case as well, because you've got a whole different situation if the deceased is an elderly person who's known to be demented and will wander away from home versus someone who is not known to have any kind of mental illness or mental challenges and who winds up in a place that's radically different from an environment that they typically inhabit and has, no other medical conditions that anybody's aware of.
All right. Now, to get to specifics, did you respond to a human remains scene off of Highway 316 in Decatur, Georgia, back on February 6th of 2023?
Yes, I did.
At that time, were you acting as the chief medical examiner for Gwinnett County?
Yes, I was.
And describe for the jury, when you got there, what you found.
Okay. Well, when we got there, I was with three other employees, and we walked into this wooded area off of 316, and it was, I'd say, well back into the woods, several hundred feet into the woods. The main body or mass of the remains, the majority of the skeletal remains were in one spot, but there were some bones that were scattered, and in my estimation, up to about 100 feet away from the main mass of the remains. And the bones that were scattered away from the main body tended to be the leg bones and bone of the hip. But where the skull, the ribs, and the bones of the spine were located in that area were also bones from the arms. And in that area, some pine straw, dirt, and other kind of small tree trunks and stuff had kind of amassed on top of these remains. So it involved digging into the top layer of the ground cover a little bit. There are leaves there as well. And at this point in time, it was dark. I know from referring to the record that I pronounced the deceased dead at 8 p.m. that night. So it was dark, people were there with flashlights, and we're trying to recover as much of the body as we can at that point in time.
Obviously, I think you and the investigators that were on scene ultimately made a call to secure it, come back, and continue a search the next day?
That is correct. And the next day, there were other employees from my office who went back to search. I did not return the second day, but I did have other employees who did.
On the first night when you were there, did you take efforts at that time to try and get some kind of idea about maybe the age or gender of the person whose remains were recovered?
Yes.
And how did you attempt to do that?
Okay, well, one of the best ways to ascertain gender or sex of skeletal remains is to look at the bones of the pelvis. And so in looking at the bones of the pelvis, the pubic angle where the bones come together in the front was very broad. That's indicative of a female sex. Males, the angle tends to be very narrow. It tends to have sort of a V shape, but with females it tends to be very broad. So in looking at the pelvis, I knew we were dealing with a female. Also in looking at the skull, something that you can look at is like the brow and to see how developed it is. And in this case, the brow was not very prominent. Also the mastoid processes, the bones kind of back behind the ears, again, not very pronounced. With men, they tend to be more robust. So I was confident I was dealing with a female individual. And one of the things too, in looking at the bones, was I was able to see that some of the growth plates were not fused. And so where as people get older and grow and the bones elongate, that will happen as long as the growth plate isn't fused. And in this case, I could see in some of the bones where that had not occurred. So I knew we were dealing with someone young. Also at the same time, and by young I mean probably teenaged, and one of the things that I had remembered from a skeletal remains analysis type class I had attended years ago was that the last bone to completely fuse is the collarbone or the clavicle. And in seeing the clavicle there, I realized that was not fused. So I knew I was dealing with a young female. And in seeing the skull, there were features that looked to be blended between kind of black and white ethnicities. And that's something that's commonly seen in a Hispanic individual. But while I'm looking at these things and making these observations, I also had one of my coworkers contacting our forensic anthropology consultant who's in Arizona, and they were texting back and forth. I don't think they were actually talking and texting. And some of the things I was saying, she was texting right back. And so confirming what I was seeing, that we were dealing with a young female who was probably Hispanic.
You are now first witness. Terry, I'm going to show you. I've got some photographs here. I've marked them in State's Exhibit 26.1 through 26.13. Would you mind taking a look at these and letting me know if you recognize them?
Okay. Yes, I do recognize them.
And what are they pictures of?
These are photographs that were taken in conjunction with my examination of the remains of the individual, excuse me, identified as Susana Morales.
Are those fair and accurate depictions of what you just described?
Yes, they are. Some of the photographs are taken in the morgue, and others are taken from the scene the night that I was there during the recovery of the remains.
And Your Honor, at this time I move to admit State's Exhibits 26.1 through 26.13.
Okay. State's Exhibit 26.1 through 26.13 are admitted without objection. Eddie, would you mind giving Dr. Terry a bottle of water out of my office?
Oh, well, thank you.
When, before you, or I guess once you started the autopsy and started looking at the remains later on to, how did you determine that you were going to try and make a positive identification of the individual?
Okay, well, one of the things that I'm looking at to try to identify this individual is I'm looking to see if there are any distinctive skeletal abnormalities, anything that looks like a prior broken bone, anything that looks like surgical or orthopedic hardware. Also, I have x-rays that are taken to see if there's anything associated with the bones. But the most striking thing and most evident thing in this case is looking at the dental features of this individual, and she had some dental work, and that wound up being the most identifying features about her.
All right. And Judge, I'm going to move to the United States Exhibit number 8, which are the dental records for Susana Morales from Happy Smiles Dentistry. They are being submitted pursuant to a business record certification from Happy Smiles that is contained in States Exhibit 8.1 and also States Exhibit 9, which are dental records from Vital Smiles, which are also being submitted via business record certification labeled as States Exhibit 9.1.
Okay, States Exhibit 8, 8.1, 9, and 9.1 are admitted without objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Terry, I'll leave these up here for you if you need it right here. Generally, if you're making dental comparisons, you mentioned in this case there's dental work that was done. So describe to the jury, I guess, how that's helpful.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, Susana Morales had 3 teeth that had fillings in them. And these types of fillings are referred to as amalgam fillings. So when you think about the silver-looking fillings, I mean, these days a lot of people have kind of the cream-colored composite restorations that look like tooth material that are harder to see, but those of us who are a little bit older have those amalgam fillings. That's what she had. And as I said, they involved 3 teeth, and 2 of these teeth had 2 separate areas that had 2 fillings in them each. So, I mean, these were very distinctive features. Also, in looking at her teeth, or the teeth of the deceased individual I had, one of her teeth was turned or tilted a bit and overlapped her left upper front tooth. And so it was the tooth next to the left upper front. It's the upper lateral left incisor, tooth number 10, but anyway, it's next to the left upper front, and it was turned and partially overlapped the big front central incisor there on the left.
Your Honor, may I have permission to publish the photographs contained in States Exhibits 26.1 through 26.13?
Yes.
All right. And if we can go ahead and start with, we'll start with 26.1. Dr. Terry, can you see this image?
Yes, I can.
Okay. And describe for us kind of where this is and what we're looking at.
Okay. This photograph is taken in the morgue, and as I'm going through the different bones, I'm wiping them off, washing them up, cleaning them off, and looking at them. I'm looking at them for anything that's distinctive as well as any evidence of trauma to them, because sometimes the trauma can be somewhat subtle, like knife marks or tool marks that may be on a rib where you have an edge that's just sliced a little bit. So I'm looking at these different bones as I am going through and roughly placing them in an anatomic position. 2, as I'm doing this, I'm looking to make sure that, or taking an inventory to try to make sure that I have as much of the skeleton as possible, and making sure I don't have any duplicates of bones that might indicate I've got more than one individual here. But none of that happened. And as I said, and I don't know if you can see it here in this picture, is there?
We can zoom in for you.
Okay. All right. The bone, it's going to be the left humerus, if we can, is toward the right.
And Dr. Terry, here's a pointer.
Yes, that'd be outstanding. All right. As I mentioned about, may I stand?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Just watch your step.
No, zoom out, please. Right there. That's the growth plate I was talking about. Whoops. In one of the bones there, I could see that growth plate had not fused. So again, we're dealing with someone who's probably teenage. And when you see that sort of thing that has occurred or not, where it has not fused, that indicates you're dealing with a younger individual.
We go to 26.2, please. All right, and what are we looking at here?
Okay, this is just another view also taken in the morgue of the bones laid out as I'm going through them. A lot of the bones of the hands and feet just kind of lumped together in the little trays there at the bottom. Again, putting things out roughly in anatomic position. And at this point in time, the only bones that I'm aware that I don't have are the kneecaps and probably some of the bones of the hands and the feet. There's structures in the neck that we're looking for, specifically cartilages and the hyoid bone that were not located. But other than that, we've essentially got the complete skeleton.
We go to the next photograph. All right, and this photograph?
Okay, in this photograph, it shows the skull with the jaw placed next to the upper teeth. As you look at the skull, those are normal sutures or areas where the bones come together in the skull. That is not trauma. Those are not fractures or breaks in the skull, but this is just kind of showing an overall appearance of the skull. It's somewhat oval to rounded, and just again showing no obvious trauma.
All right. And the next photograph?
Okay, this photograph also showing the skull. Unfortunately, the jaw is kind of slid forward. It really should have been positioned back a little bit. But, looking at these facial features here, the nasal bridge is somewhat narrowed. There's kind of a prominent nasal spine. As I said, there's some features here that look somewhat blended between African American and Caucasian. And also, what was it? Oh, I mentioned before about the brow not being very prominent. Again, consistent with a female sex.
And the next photograph? This is 26.5. All right, what are we looking at here?
Okay, in this photograph, we're looking at the skull turned upside down. So we're looking at the upper teeth. And as we're looking at these teeth, let's see, as we look at them, the way you number teeth for purposes of identifying them is your wisdom tooth, your third molar on the right upper side is number 1. She doesn't have that tooth, but it would be here. Then you count 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, there's that tooth that's tilted, as I described earlier, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and she doesn't have 16. She doesn't have a third molar on either side of her upper jaw. And you see the 2 fillings there in tooth number 14. So I have all of the teeth of her upper jaw, or her maxilla, and the only one that has restorations in it is tooth number 14.
And can we go to the next photograph?
Okay.
And are we looking at a closer up photograph of the top part that you were just showing on tooth 14?
Yes, we are.
Can we go to the next photograph?
Okay.
And what about this one?
Okay, we're looking at the other side. So before we were looking at the left side of the upper jaw, this is the right side of the upper jaw, and we're not seeing any restorations there.
And by restorations, I know what you mean, but you mean
Fillings, yes.
Next photograph?
Okay. All right. Now we're looking at the lower jaw, or the mandible. And when we count these teeth, so we ended with 16 up here on the left upper side. Then we drop down to the left lower side and start with 17, which would be the third molar or wisdom tooth on the left side. She does not have that tooth, which would be there. So then 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, and 32 would be there. So she doesn't have teeth, she doesn't have third molars or wisdom teeth on the upper jaw or the lower jaw. She's got fillings here in teeth numbers 19 and 30. Tooth number 30 actually has 2 fillings in it. And then as we look at this, we see 2 empty spaces there next to, next to number 19. So teeth numbers 20 and 21, those teeth were lost after she died. And so that's called postmortem absence. And we can tell because there's no healing of those sockets. Those teeth have just fallen out. And that's not unusual because as we were recovering these remains, there were some teeth that were loose there next to the jaws that I had to replace. And we just did not find those 2 teeth.
And did you document all of the fillings and on the remains that you found on a chart that you used from the medical examiner's office?
Yes, I did.
All right. I'm going to show you where I've marked as State's Exhibit number 58. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And is that the chart where you documented all of these the fillings?
Yes, I documented the fillings, the turned tooth number 10, and the fact that I don't have wisdom teeth on the upper or lower jaws, and that I have postmortem loss or absence of teeth numbers 20 and 21.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of that sketch?
Yes, it is.
All right, Judge, will move to the next stage, Exhibit 58.
Mr.
Sorry, I didn't take this.
It's okay. Oh, Mr. Jones, no objection, okay.
Now move to publish, Your Honor.
Yes, 58 is admitted without objection, and you may publish.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right. Let me zoom in just a little bit because it's a little hard to. It's not letting us in, so we're going to do the best we can with this one. Can you just kind of show us, walk us through this sketch that you did here?
Okay. Now, bear in mind, this is a diagram I did of the skull before I knew who the deceased was. The label that's up on the top has been added after she was positively identified. So in taking these remains, I've looked at the teeth, and I have made this dental chart to show what I have. And as I indicated, I don't have the third molars, upper or lower, those wisdom teeth. So I have X'd those out and written that they were absent ante-mortem, which means prior to death. She just didn't have those teeth. Whether she, had them removed or they never came in, I don't know. I just know that they're not there. The ones that are labeled 20 and 21, those are the ones that I told you were lost post-mortem. They fell out at some point, and we just didn't recover them. So if there are any distinctive features about those teeth, I don't know because I never got to see them. We didn't find them. What I do know, tooth number 10 that's indicated up there, I drew a little arrow to indicate it's turned somewhat. And then the fillings that are on teeth numbers 30, 19, and 14, I've indicated them on this charting as well as which surfaces of the teeth they involved. And so you'll see where I've got O is for occlusal. It means it's on the chewing surface of the tooth. You'll see B is for buccal or buccal, which means the side towards the gum. L is for lingual, which means toward the side that faces the tongue. And so I've depicted these on this chart so that I can have this for reference to compare to any dental records that I'm presented with.
Did you in fact compare your findings to dental records?
Yes, I did.
And Those dental records, are those the dental records that I've provided to you up there in State's Exhibit 8?
Yes, they are.
Now, and with State's Exhibit 8, can you put, may I publish this?
Sure. Sure.
Let's put that up. Dr. Terry, I'm putting up here some records. I think we can zoom on this one.
Okay.
But what did you use? Did you use these records right here in order to make a comparison from Susana Morales?
Yes, I did, because these were the most helpful to me. I did have access to some x-rays, and the x-rays showed were from an earlier time in which she still had baby teeth in her mouth. The remains that I had no baby teeth. They were all adult or permanent teeth. So the thing that was most important to me, can we
scroll down?
scroll down just, whoa, okay. Okay, yeah, this is good right there. I mentioned before that we were dealing with amalgam restorations, so those types of fillings. And when we look here where it's got amalgam, we've got it written in a couple of places, and we do have like some extractions, which means basically she had teeth pulled, but those were primary teeth or baby teeth that were pulled. Okay, but let's focus on these amalgam restorations and where they have numbers written. Where they have letters written, that has to do with baby teeth. And again, we don't have any baby teeth, so let's not pay attention to the lettering that's associated with those, because that's not relevant. But when we look at the amalgam restorations that involve the permanent teeth, here where it says amalgam, two surfaces, primary or permanent, that's tooth number 30. Well, if you look at State's Exhibit 58, tooth number 30 has two restorations on it. It's got the occlusal, and then it's got this small filling that's on the gum side, not gum side, the cheek side of the tooth. So it's got two restorations. Let's go back to State's Exhibit, was it 8? Yes. Okay, so that's tooth number 30. Then we look at here where it says amalgam, two surfaces, primary or permanent, on tooth number 14. Go back to State's Exhibit 58. Tooth number 14, over there, we have the two restorations that are on that tooth. Okay, and back to, and then here, amalgam, one surface, primary or permanent tooth, tooth number 19. And tooth number 19, over there, we have that one restoration that's on the occlusal surface. These are the dental records of Susana Morales. And these are the remains of Susana Morales based upon these dental records. And then additionally, at some point I was shown a photograph of her smiling, and you could see tooth number 10 with that tilt to it. So again, there are all these features of identity without any exclusionary features. There was nothing that I could look at and say, yeah, this absolutely means it's not her. Everything is consistent with this being Susana Morales.
At the point that you had identified her remains, tell us how you went about at that point in the examination and the autopsy and determining the cause of death.
Okay, well, I examined the remains. Let's see, the remains were found on the 6th. I was doing the examination on the 7th. I had employees who responded back to the scene to canvass the scene during the daylight hours to see if we could find any more physical remains there at the scene. I was doing the examination on the 7th and did not see any skeletal trauma to the remains that I have, and was able to make the positive identification upon being given the dental records on the 8th. So in looking at everything that I had, I could not arrive at a specific cause of death. Again, I'm limited in what I have. I just have bones here. But as I mentioned earlier, as a medical examiner, we don't conduct examinations in a vacuum. And you've got to consider the circumstances. And then once knowing who this deceased was, young female, no known significant medical conditions, last known to be alive some distance from where these remains were found. Also, in the course of doing the examination at the scene, I didn't find any personal effects. I didn't find any remnants of clothing. So it looks like she's likely nude at the scene. And so many years ago, early in my training, I was told when filling out death certificates, one of the things that's important is to be consistent. And throughout my career, if I don't have demonstrable physical trauma to the remains, I will tend to use the term undetermined, and then will specifically say why. In this case, I called the cause of death undetermined due to decomposition with skeletonization. I believe if I had had the intact body, I could have come up with a specific cause of death, but I'm limited based on what I have. The body is too decomposed. All I have is a skeleton. Because the circumstances, again, young female, this isolated area where it's far removed from where she was last known to be alive, and no personal effects, no clothing. As a medical examiner with 30 years of experience, if I were to see an intact individual at this type of a scene, first thing I'm going to think of is some type of homicidal violence, specifically some type of asphyxial type component, strangulation, suffocation, chest compression, things of that nature. Because if you have a nude individual, nude or partially nude, that better be, as a medical examiner, that better be one of the first things you're thinking about. And so the fact that she doesn't have any skeletal trauma does not exclude that. And again, my cause of death, undetermined due to decomposition with skeletonization. It's not, if I could test this or that, I could come up with a cause of death. There's no getting around the fact that I don't have what I need to have to make to rule out what I think is going on. I'm very suspicious of strangulation, chest compression, suffocation, smothering, something of that nature. And I just do not have the body in a condition where I can prove that or disprove that. And so I've called it undetermined. And as you can tell from listening to me, I'm very verbose about stuff. On the death certificate, I'm limited to what I can put. But in my report, I'm quite explicit about these are my findings, these are my impressions from the get-go. There's no more testing I can do because what I need to see is not there. And there's no bringing that back. I mean, her neck structures, they're not there. Skin, flesh, it's not there. And it's not that not only can I not tell, no other pathologist is going to have access to this because it's not there. She has decomposed to the point where I can't establish this. I can say I'm very suspicious, and that's where I have to leave it because it's based on the circumstances. And so that's how I came up with my cause and manner of death. By convention, unless I have, again, being consistent, unless I have physical trauma, I tend to call things undetermined and say why. But then we'll go into detail in my report about what my opinion might be. And again, based on my experience, 30 years as a medical examiner with this type of situation, again, young female, deceased, no obvious trauma, and decomposed well away from where she was last known to be alive. This is different from someone who may have dementia, live in the area, and then shows up dead in the woods somewhere. You know, it's very much dependent upon the circumstances, and these circumstances are very suspicious for homicidal violence, but I can't prove it because of the condition of the remains.
Dr. Terry, based on the recovery of the remains in this case, were you able to make any conclusions about how long the remains had been at the scene where they were at? Or yeah, that's it.
They'd been there a while, I would say, and by a while, months, maybe, I think she was last known to be alive in January, and not January, July of 2022, and then the remains were found in February of 2023. So it's consistent with that time period. And I say that because almost all of the flesh is gone. There are a couple of bones that have a slight amount of dried soft tissue, but it's very minimal, and there is some fatty degenerating material referred to as adipocere that's associated with rare bones, but she is almost completely skeletonized at that point, and so she's been there for a period of months.
Okay. Were you able to make any conclusions in your report? Now, obviously, you positively identified these remains as